What's up guys, welcome to another video where my voice is not completely ruined. Anyway, in this one we are going to be talking about some things, some ideas that I think will be absolutely great for the game personally, but I wanted to get your guys' opinion on them as well. I don't expect this video to make Jagex do anything like this. They had their plan for the year already, of course, but these are just ideas. I like theory crafting this sort of thing, and I like hearing what your opinion on them is too, so that is why we're making this video. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. There are some little things, and then there's something that is pretty big in here that I've mentioned on stream. Other people really like the idea, and we'll see how that one works. But anyway, let's go. Okay, so we're going to start off with a fairly small one, but you guys know when you kill Araxxor that when you are wanting to get through their first phase, you have to burn the web down. Now this web lasts a hell of a long time. With all the power creep in the game, this web duration hasn't changed, but it just sits there the same as it always has, and you kill Rax very quickly in this phase. You get that health down to the 5k limit very quickly. Now what happens is if you attack Rax past the 5k, you kill Rax off down to 0 health, he will automatically heal to 5,000 again, and you can keep repeating this cycle. What I think would be a really freaking cool idea would be, rather than just making the web take less time to burn, instead of that, add something where every time you reset Rax's health, so you take that 5k off and then it goes back to the 5k, the web burns another 1%, even 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever, but each time you do that, that drops the web down by another 1%, 2%, or whatever you want to set it to. This could increase the actual speed that you can burn the web, but it means that you're not just sat there doing nothing for the entire time. You still have to actually do something to get through that. So people who are faster at doing TPS will still be rewarded with faster kill times because they actually are burning the web down quicker, but also for the people like myself who just do average DPS but we can still get that web down way too soon, it's nice easy ways to just progress through the fight and not just feel like you're stood there. What I do at the moment is when Rax has hit that threshold and you are just waiting for the web, which is a pretty long amount of time, it's like half of the time of the web, you just sort of sit there. I sit there, I get my shield out, and I use reflect, I use like resonance, I use devotion sometimes, and just to stop myself from taking damage, because that's all there is to do. There is nothing else to do. If you attack Rax, it doesn't do anything. If you're already at 100% adrenaline, you might want to gain some adrenaline otherwise, but if you attack Rax, nothing's going to happen. The health drops down, it goes back to 5k, and so you just sort of sat there like, this is fun. Not, but it's something that's a little bit irritating. But actually having something that you can do yourself to push this down would be very cool in my opinion. You could also implement this into Path 2 with the acid as well if you really wanted to, and when you've got Rax in the acid, if you drop his health down again to the 5k limit where it's just going to keep refreshing, maybe add a little bit more acid to Rax at a faster rate. So each time you do that, it adds another 5% acid, and that way if you are DPSing like crazy, you're going to get rewarded for it, and you don't feel like, yeah, I don't know, like it's really not difficult even for an average PVMer like myself to get that hit cap. And then at that point, it just makes the boss feel like a bit of a boring thing to be at, a bit of a drag, and it limits, it's like a time gated mechanic. You gotta sit and wait and not really do anything about it. So in my opinion, this could be really cool. What do you guys think? I think it's a good idea. I just think there's a better way to do it. I think this way it doesn't completely like ruin the fight. It's not mega quick. 1% isn't that whole big of a deal. But at the same time, it still feels like you as a player are being productive. So that's why I came up with this idea. What do you guys reckon? This next one is kind of a big deal and a big difference if you were going to add this, and that would be the use of ability suggestions. What I mean by that is when you are learning PVM, if you had something that was suggested after using other abilities as something to help people understand what a good DPS rotation is, or what ability is good to use after another one. Combat in RuneScape 3 is insanely confusing. There is so much depth to it, there is so many abilities to use, there's so many different buffs to use, there's so much stuff to learn for a new player to actually understand what's going on. And when you start the game out, Revolution++ is default set to on, and in my opinion, for one, that's kind of a little bit of a mistake. I think it should be standard Revolution, if not full manual in the first place, but that's another story altogether. What would be incredibly useful is an option, even if it's an option that you have to enable yourself, but something that kind of like Final Fantasy 14, if you haven't seen this, when you use an ability, any abilities that combo well with the one you've just used actually like glow or have a border around them to give you a visual indicator if you should maybe use this next, because this is going to be a good combination. What would be a good example of this in RuneScape 3 would be if you use a needle strike on ranged with the two-hander, it then highlights your threshold abilities like snapshot or rapid fire, these abilities that you're going to want to use after needle shot, needle strike, or whatever it's called, to actually increase your damage output. And you don't don't want to be using Needle Strike and then using a bleed. It doesn't do anything. But a new player is not going to know that unless you've looked into it on the wiki and found all that information out, or unless somebody's told you, in which case, unless you're streaming and someone's actually watching you, you're not going to get that information given to you. But having these visual indicators of this ability, like is like glowing, or it just has a border around it for the duration after you've used Needle Strike, just for that global cooldown timer, it will give you more information on knowing what to use next. You could have the same happen if you use things like Metamorph. You could have it suggest to use bleeds if you're not quite at the adrenaline of using threshold abilities yet. If you're fighting a group of mobs, maybe it will suggest using an AoE ability or anything like this. There really wouldn't be a ton of stuff you could add to this, but there would be just a useful few things that just show you what ability to use next, or what would be a good ability to use next in helping you in people's DPS rotations, all that sort of good stuff. It's not going to make PvM so much easier that a rotation is just simple and it's automatically told you what to do, but it would just give you an odd suggestion here and there on what ability to use. Then the player can make a decision whether actually I want to use this right now, or oh, that ability works a lot better after using this. Nice. Well, now I've gotten the habit of using Needle Strike and then using Snapshot rather than using Needle Strike and a bleed and then Snapshot. There's a lot of DPS lost there. So, hey, let's do it like this instead. Personally, I think anything that helps newer players understand the combat in this game is really important to the game. And I think it could help out a hell of a lot. And I think this would be really damn helpful. So what do you guys think? Do you think that it's something that would be really useful for the game? Or do you think this is just it probably wouldn't really do anything situation? I'm fine if you guys think it's a terrible idea. Let me know in the comments too. Any other suggestions that you have, then do share them as well. I love this sort of theory crafting stuff. It is great. It's so fun. Okay, this one is a skilling update idea that I mentioned for stream while I was streaming, surprisingly, and chat actually really liked it, and I haven't mentioned it in a video, but I'm going to now. Now, this would need polishing, need a lot of edges shining off. I am not a game developer, but I think it's a really cool idea, and I think it's a really good idea on fixing skilling, or adding a little bit of more depth to skilling for you skillers in the game that like to do that rather than touching PvM altogether. Now, that would be having a skilling board or a processing request or something like that from other players. Now, this would be like the Grand Exchange. It's all player run, it's all player demand and all that sort of stuff, completely player driven. And basically what it would be is, say I am me, right? I am me in this situation. This is perfect. I am a lazy PvMer who doesn't want to do any skilling whatsoever, but I've done my skilling to get to max because I've had to anyway, but I just don't want to make overloads. Okay, I do not want to make overloads. I don't have the time for it. I just can't be bothered, and I'm happy to pay a premium for this. Well, I am running out of overloads. I have 10 left in the bank, but I really want to get some more, and I just don't want to make them myself. I go to the Grand Exchange or wherever this is set up, and I go to a skilling board or a request board. And at this board, I could put in a request for, say, 500 Elder Overload salves or Elder Overloads, whatever potion you want to make. This could be absolutely anything at all. But the board will say the requirements to do this is you have to have all of the supplies beforehand and the level to actually craft it yourself as well, so that it doesn't remove that whole requirement of having to be able to make overloads yourself. And then you can submit it to the board. Now, what this would do is I would go to the Grand Exchange, I would get all of those supplies myself from the Grand Exchange, meaning that the people who are doing skilling, wanting raw materials and wanting to go ahead and still be like doing all that sort of skilling, it doesn't devalue that. We're still going to need all of that. I still have that demand from those people, so that's still there. Then I take those supplies and I take it to the board and I put it in there as a request for 500 Elder Overloads and this much stuff, and then there's going to be a premium on top. I will give a specific amount of gold on top of that. Say if I say, right, this 500 Overloads, this is going to take however long it's going to take, and I really don't know the pricing off the top of my head, but let's say I say for the time that you guys are going to make this instead of me, I will put a 10 million GP premium on top of this. Now, this may be more or less, again, if it's player demand, player run, then this number will sort of come up over time, and we'll be able to see what that would be. But let's just say 10 million GB. Somebody comes along, a skiller comes to this board, they look at the board and they go, okay, what do I want to see? Oh, this person's put 10 million GP for me to use their supplies to craft them Elder Overloads. Now, when the player takes this request from the board, they get given certificates or something that's not tradable, something that isn't the actual items. It's just an equivalent, like a banknote sort of thing, but it's completely untradeable, and this would act as their supplies. They craft the overloads from the bank, they do their skilling bit, they process it, and then they give it back to the board. Then the board pings me, just like the Grand Exchange does, and says, hey, your request has been filled, this person's been given their 10 million GP, your overloads are here to collect. So I go back to the board, I collect the overloads, the player gets their 10 million GP. As soon as they hand that back in, they don't have to wait for me to accept it. As soon as they hand it back in, they get their 10 million GP. I get my overloads. They could not have traded these supplies off anywhere because it's not the actual same thing, it's just a certificate for it. Those supplies get removed from the game just like they would be when they were made into overloads, and that's how that works. Now, if the order's not fulfilled, then those certificates get removed from that player in a certain amount of time, and then I get all my stuff back and I can submit it again. Now, in my eyes, this seems like a really freaking good idea for actually getting skillers something extra to do. Not only that, they get paid a premium on when they're doing it, so they can get paid for their time rather than just for the supplies and whatever they can make. So they can make overloads and make profit. They can make things that other players can't be bothered doing and don't want to do skilling. They can make the stuff for those players and actually get paid for it in a premium in a time, and they can add a demand on what their price would be. And over time, because if someone put a really low offer in, you don't have to accept that. It's too low, you're not going to accept it, then they bump the offer up. These prices would become something that you can just see would be done. You could even show the last person paid this much, so that's what the going rate is at the moment. All these sort of things. Personally, I think this is a really cool idea. I think that it would add a lot to skilling, and personally, I would do stuff like this in my own downtime of playing. If I'm not PVMing, I would use this myself, and I'm not a skiller, but I would do this for anything that was AFK that could make me a little bit of extra cash on the side. I don't see why this wouldn't be a good idea. You would have to maybe tackle something with bots, whether you have to do something beforehand before you can do it. Maybe you can only take a certain amount of contracts each day or each week or something. I really don't know how you would deal with it, but I am a player, not a game dev, and I think this is a cool idea, and it's not down to me to fix those problems. But personally, I think this could be epic. I think it could be super good for skillers and for that sort of stuff, and you could do the same. It doesn't have to just be processing stuff that's stood at the bank AFKing. It could be anything at all. You could maybe put contracts in there for raw materials. People go and collect them, you pay a premium. I don't know why you do that instead of using the Grand Exchange, but if they can figure out a way to do this and add other things in there as well, then happy days. This could be, in my opinion, a really cool addition to the game. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. This is the last one I'm going to mention in this video because it's getting really long, but hey, let me know what you guys think. I really like this idea. I want to know what your thoughts on it are, and other than that, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please do leave a like. Do subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and I will catch you all in the next one. Also, I hope you all had a great Christmas. I really, really do. I was epic, so yeah, I hope you guys did too, and I'll see you all later. See you later, guys. Bye.